Okay, so this is another very generic sounding one, but like I said, it has enough specificity that I think it'll give us like a hook. So this is Mishlei Chaf Gimel Chaf Beis 23-22. Shema le'avicha ze yiladecha. Okay, yiladecha. That's interesting. It does not mean your child. Okay. Ve'al tavuz ki zakna imecha. Kind of rhymey.
So they're your father.
Yeah.
This is the.
So Shema le'avicha. Listen to your father. Yeah, listen to your father. Okay. Ze yaledecha. I should say yaledecha. Yes, that's what you would think it would mean. But yeah. So what word do you use for give birth? Are you talking about a male?
A father.
You can say who fathered you, right? Who
Sire.
Okay, sired you. That's good. That is definitely a word that is used. Yeah. Who bore you. Okay, it does not mean like to make bored. Okay. Or who begat you, right? I think begat is the more common one. Who begat you. Okay. I like sire though. I don't know why I like that so much. Yeah. Oh, good guess. Yeah. What was that? I did not really think about that until Isaac brought it up. Let's see. Define sire as a verb, right? Of a male animal to cause the birth of. Yeah, I mean, especially a stallion. Okay. Yeah, we'll see from the Mefarshim. This is talking about horses. V'al tavuz ki zakna imecha. Yeah. Do not. No. Degrade. Yeah. Do not degrade. Degrade. Ki zakna imecha.
When your mother gets older.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's when or for. Yeah. Let's do your mother. Your mother has aged.
And it's ambiguous. What is the degrading here?
I think so. Yeah. All right. So Sadigon, which I forgot to type up here. Sadigon says it's in the packet though. Shema le'avicha asher yaladecha ve'al tazalzal be'imecha im zakena. Okay. So he says if she is old, right? So we'll just add the if there.
Who's the grandmother?
Good question. Okay, so because no one has mothers that they don't like and that they would degrade. It's just impossible.
Doesn't make sense. I mean, like, why wouldn't you be father?
Yeah. All right. Kavel min avuch den yalda v'lo shoot metul de sevas imach. To shoot is the only word I don't know here.
Except from your father.
What was it?
Except from your father or something.
Yeah. So kabel is also to listen to in Aramaic. I don't think it means to accept. Was I looking up shoot? Yeah. Is it the same short in Aramaic?
Kabel and like meaning accept and meaning listen.
Yeah. In other words, do you translate in Aramaic kabel as kabel? I don't know if you do. I'm not sure. Shoot. What am I looking up again? To shoot. Yeah. How would this be in the dictionary?
The line. Shoot.
It is related to shita. I mean, but not here. I don't think. Shin.
I think it was a top.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And what word is he translating? I just kind of lost the.
No, the test.
Yeah.
Shin no test.
I'm gonna look up those shin tet. Okay, yeah, I don't know. All right, we're gonna abandon it for now. Okay, all right. So Art Scroll says, "Give ear to your father," which is interesting. Art Scroll usually translates as "give ear," ha'azinu, because it was the Ozen. I don't know why they translated here as "give ear." Who begot you, and though your mother may be old, do not scorn her. So they're saying "ki zakna imecha" is although. Okay.
Oh, we said begat. They said begot.
Oh yes.
What's the difference?
Who begot?
I think we got us past tense.
Yeah.
Begat.
Yeah. Do you also say he begat so and so begat so and so?
Yeah.
They call it the begats, right? When they're talking about the not the begots. Let's settle this once and for all.
One might be like
Begat versus begot.
for you.
Wikidiff. Didn't know about Wikidiff. Let's see here. It says.
It's begot, like he begot or who.
I'm ignoring it. In English, past tense of beget difference between begat and begat is that begat is beget well as begot. This is not
Oh, yeah,
helpful.
right.
Let's look at my favorite English error site. I don't know if they're gonna have this one. That's not one. Yeah. Got. Nope, they don't have. Unfortunately, they don't. Yeah, all right, fine. All right, we'll leave it as a mystery. Okay. Listen to your father, the one who bore you, and do not scorn the mother when she has grown old. Okay. And then Alter says, listen to your father who begot you, nor despise your mother when she grows old. So what I like about Alters is he captures the weird, there's a weird lack of parallel there that it says, listen to your father who begot you, nor despise your mother when she grows old, right? Ve'al, usually you say neither this nor that, but the first part is expressed as an aseh, not a los aseh, right? Like you should listen, shema, not, if it said don't ignore your father and don't despise your mother, that would both be negatives, So it is weird that it says that. See, this is the thing that makes me keep coming back to Alter, which is that he is very sensitive to the nuances in the language and will try to preserve the ambiguities in the Hebrew in his translation, which is like, that's, for example, this is a philosophical question when you're translating, what do you do and what do you not do? So our school definitely does not do that. They will take, if there's an ambiguity, they'll take one of the mafarshim and they'll write it in a way that makes sense, which obviously has its advantages, but yeah.
So what is nor doing versus neither? Like
so in English, the way is, like if I say, for example, don't scream or neither scream nor talk loud. I'm saying two negatives. Don't do this and don't do that.
Nor don't.
Right. But if I said a positive thing, if I said you should say hello nor yell, that just doesn't make any sense. Right. Like it even strikes you, even without knowing like grammatical reasons, it just is weird. And that's how it's phrased. Listen to your father, nor scorn your mother,
And this doesn't make sense.
This doesn't make sense. Yeah, it would only make sense if it said two negatives or two positives. All right. So what were this? I feel like there were questions already stated. Yeah.
Well, is it the who begot you or who bore you the reason why you should listen, or is it just the description of who the father is?
So it's interesting. It could be implying a reason, which I think is a reasonable way to take it, but it seems to just be an identifier, right?
Okay.
Your father, the one who bore you.
Right,
Yeah.
but your mother is the one who birthed you.
Right, but this is the I think this is the way that, like, in the again, if you go to the begats, not to be confused with the style of bread. Yeah. I just want to see just if it's going to do this here. Say like Bereshit chapter 5. Let's see if she uses it. He fathered. Okay, so the old school translations would say, like, she's begat Enosh, and Enosh begat Canaan, etc. Yeah. So yeah. All right. So what? I feel like we said some questions along the way. Oh yeah, right. What does tavuz mean in this context? And then Ariel asked, why would someone degrade? Why would someone tavuz his mother?
She's a righteous person. Why would you degrade her?
Who says she's righteous?
No, I'm just saying.
Oh, okay.
I'm assuming like what? Just she's older, unless she's a good person. Why would you degrade her? Versus,
Is it clear that he's degrading his mother?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, it's clear that he's being told not to.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But do not degrade it.
Oh, you're saying
your mother has aged, could be.
You're saying it could be degrading his father?
Or that because his mother has aged,
Yeah.
Now it's causative of him degrading.
Yeah. Oh, you know
his
what?
son.
Hold on. I think.
No, meaning like he hasn't degraded her yet, but it's like a.
Right. So I'll write this as a question. Okay, which is that I'll put this here. Alternatively, since the pasuk doesn't tell us the object of tavuz, so what did you suggest?
Could either be the father or it could be something else.
Yeah. Right. Perhaps this isn't talking about degrading his mother, right? Which then you'd have to explain the causal relationship,
Yeah.
right? But then actually, let's put this as a separate question.
I don't understand the question.
Hold on a second. Since the pasuk isn't talking about degrading his mother, in which case A, what is he being told not to degrade? And then B, why is his mother's age a factor or would be factor in doing this? And let's see. So the question is, it does not actually say don't degrade your mother. It says don't degrade because your mother has become old. So it's not saying what, there's like a space in between here. Don't degrade blank because your mother's grown old. So the most simple reading is definitely it's saying don't degrade your mother, but Sean's saying it could be in something else.
I got it.
Yeah, Sean, Yeshua?
I think you were asking this, but how are the two halves connected?
Okay, yeah. What is the relationship between the two halves? That's actually not what I was saying, but I was saying a more specific linguistic question between the two halves. Yeah, and then why does it express the first half as a in lashon aseh, and the second half in lashon lo aseh? Yeah, Isaac.
Yeah. For the first half, why does it matter that he begat you? Like, why is that a reason to listen to him?
Right. Yeah, that's
like, if what he's saying is true, then you should listen to him.
Why?
And if he's saying it's not true, then you shouldn't listen to him.
Yes. Why is Zeyaladecha a reason to listen to him? Your decision to listen should be based on the content, not your relationship with the speaker, right? Kabel ha'emes mimi she'amro, as the Rambam says. Ha'emes mimi she'amro. Yeah, Ezra?
What does it mean to listen to them?
Yes. What does Shema mean in this context? So either listen / hear, understand, or obey. And so Isaac's question would really, if it's saying listen, so then the question would be what added impetus for listening comes from the fact that this is your father. If it is understand, you should understand everything you hear, but try to understand, right? And then obey, that's the one I think that Isaac's question is the strongest on. Like, just because it's your father doesn't mean you need to like obey what he's saying. It should be based on the merit of the idea. Yeah, Chaim?
Yeah, but it is on all three, I think.
It is all three in this case.
I'm saying my question is on all three.
Your question is on three, but in different ways, I think, though.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Yeah, Chaim?
Yeah, like 3 questions, I think. What are you listening to?
Okay. What are
what
you
is the
listening
content?
to? Yeah.
And then what does it mean to degrade your mother? Like how are you doing that?
What does degrade mean in this context?
Oh, wait,
How
that's
would
not-
you be doing that? Yeah.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
And then, oh yeah, is
Wait,
there your
Scorn is also another translation. And the reason why I'm differentiating, I don't know if this actually lines up with the English words, but like, I feel like degrade is something you do in action, but scorning could be like an internal phenomenon. Like V'yibiz Esav es habechora, Esav scorned the birthright. My understanding is like it's more of an internal thing. It's not like he like hit it or
And
something.
alters despise.
Alders despise, correct? Yeah, despise. I think is like what I'm saying. Scorn is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, David.
Is there a reason why Abicha is linked to Yoledecha and Imecha to Zakna?
Okay, that's a good question. Yeah. So, is there a reason why Ze Yiladecha is linked to Avicha? Oh, what happened there? Okay. Oh no! Did I go into editing mode? Yeah, I think I went into editing mode. Oh, reviewing, is that what it says? If I declick that, that's never happened. Oh,
So you should go back
Oh.
to editing.
go back to editing.
Right now you're like marking somebody's paper.
Go back to editing. Okay, linked to Avicha, and Zakna is linked to Imecha, given the fact that it could have swapped them, right? That's your question also, or that's part of your question, I think. Yeah, Sean?
Yeah, if we're going within the theme of question 5, right? Why would someone
Yeah,
degrade his mother, right? How does age influence that
right.
within that?
Yeah. And how would her age be a factor, right? Because the implication is like he wouldn't do this if she weren't old or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, 2 questions. One, how are we understanding Shema here? Like to listen or to understand?
Yeah, I got that one there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh,
I think
fine.
one of your earlier questions though is also good. What if like does it matter whether your parents are like tzaddikim or rashaim, right? So the pasuk is seems to be speaking unqualified, right? So you got problems either way, because if your parents are tzaddikim, why do you need to be told this? And if they're rashaim, then why should you listen to them? Yeah.
Well,
Oh, sorry. Yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah, the other question is the audience.
Yeah. Who is the audience? Yeah, Sean.
Yeah, now, is this exclusive to your mother in terms of the age and your father in terms of the listening, or does that just apply
Yeah.
to your parents as a whole?
Right. Should they be swapped? Right. Right. In other words, do both apply to
Yeah.
both? Right.
Yeah, it's just stylistically.
Do
it's-
both apply to both?
Foster parents.
Oh, so that's the other interesting thing is that usually,
Yeah.
usually when you see avicha, then you go the three possibilities of avicha. It's either your biological parent, your the one who raised you, or your teacher. Here, it seems to be specific to your biological father.
Yeah.
Did I ask that already?
You,
I was thinking.
well, it wasn't
Yeah.
expressed
I mean,
as
I don't
foster
ask.
parents, but you did
Right.
touch upon it.
So let's say here.
Not to ask that question. I was gonna ask, but I thought it was obvious that it has to be your birth father.
Yeah, right. So the question is, why specify your biological father, as opposed to other psukim about fathers in Mishlei, which can apply to the one who raised you, or your teacher, or Shlomo, right?
But there's
Yeah,
also
that's subcategory of
like-
teacher, or the one who raised you, depending on how close
Literally
you are.
your
Shlomo.
grandfather also, like does it
Oh, right, your
apply
grandfather
just-
also, right.
just like
That's-
your
yeah, yeah.
immediate father or
Right.
like your avicha,
Right.
like your others?
Yeah. Also, within biological father, does this extend to earlier generations? Right.
And is there I don't remember if you asked this, but like is there significance in degrading, like if we're learning it like Sean's way, like it's not necessarily
Anticipatory. Yeah. No, go ahead,
his way about it doesn't necessarily mean that you're degrading her,
Yeah.
but it could mean you're degrading, let's say, her by degrading the father,
Mhm.
right? So did we express like why that would be?
Why you would be degrading if it's not talking about degrading your mother? It's talking.
Did we express that?
Do we? Yeah. That's why I was kind of two minds whether to put this into one question or not. We'll wrap it all into one question. So, like, why would someone degrade, and then either his mother or something else? Yeah. Fine.
I think tacked on to one of the earlier questions. Maybe what you're listening to. I forgot
Okay,
which one I
either way,
connected it to.
I'll find it.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So what are you listening to? So then tacked on to that, like we've been told many times in Mishlei already that you show listen to your father. So what's the condition?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's wrapped up. in
Yeah,
what
it
you-
is, but I think I'm going to ask that as a separate question. Okay. What is the chiddush in light of all the other psukim in Mishlei? And I think we have to ask, and especially in the local cluster, right? Which urge you to listen to your father. Yeah, and I think that's I think they're both good questions, but I think the stronger question is this is part of the same series. And let's just take a tally really quickly, just to have it so we can have it on our minds. We have here B'ni im chacham libecha yismach libi gamai. So that's not necessarily telling you to listen to your father, but he is instructing you, right? And then Shema ata b'ni, there he is instructing you. And then Shema avicha, and then and then that's it. So right. So there's really two other psukim in the local cluster that like, in other words, if this said it at the very beginning of the cluster, okay, I get it. And then he tells him stuff, but let's put that here also, which is, and why does this pasuk show up at this point in the local cluster, as opposed to showing up at the outset? In other words, isn't this son already listening? Yeah.
Yeah, I think more precise on that also, like how does this fit in with the theme that we've had
Right.
this entire?
Yeah. How does this fit in general? Oh, you know what? Another question is there's this really dumb skit, funny dumb in Purim skit that John Siskovic came up with. So you know how like the whole like motto of the derech in yeshiva is ask what, not why. You know, D1. So John Siskovic had a whole skit that the whole essence of the derech is to ask when. And you know, what's the first question ever asked in Shas is May Messiah or Ishmael? You know, he had a whole thing. And it was a funny skit. It was just you know, it was like dumb ideas that you just take too far. You know, so the question is when, right? When are you being told to do this? Because the implication is not necessarily that your mother is old right now, and especially if you're talking to a younger son, then in most cases your mother is not old. You know, so is this being told? Like this sounds like plain pshat. It sounds like you're being told this, that in the future don't degrade your mother, right? So I know you could just say like how old is old, but like I think the question should be asked on the broader advice, which is when is this advice meant to apply, right? For example, at what age is your mother considered zakna, and what about that time period would make this relevant? I know it's relevant because she's old, but like you know, this is kind of overlapping other questions. Yeah.
I think adding to that question is like,
Yeah.
what does old mean specifically?
Right.
It could also mean age, or it could also
That's
mean
also true,
like
right.
how weak you are.
Right. That's
Wow.
all. That's a good point. So
It can also just be like relative to the kid.
right. That's also true. So what does zakna imecha mean? Objective age, feebleness, relativeness to the kid or to her peers, right? Yeah, Yoshua. Right, like people have like, oh, my mother's old fashioned, like you know, like my old school. Yeah.
Similar question of
Yeah.
when do you listen to your father? So just like a blanket framework of if he's your father, then always listen to him.
Right. Right. So should you always listen to him? Yeah. Okay, so I guess I was right about the fact that this has footholds. There's a lot of stuff that we need to explain here. I feel like we got most of the questions though, if not all of them. Yeah. Whew, tough one. Yeah.
Oh, I have a
Sure. Yeah, I think we're ready for
okay,
approaches.
so I think start with the audience. I think the audience is in line with this cluster, like a nar
Yeah.
or a youngster, I guess you could call him. And
Whippersnapper.
yeah, although I'm thinking more of like a tween to teenagers.
Right. Someone gangly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that it's very easy, like when you're like that age, to first off forget where you came from. And
Yeah.
then also like forget that just because your parents are older than you, it doesn't mean that they're not wiser than you.
Right.
And there's just like framework that we all work in when we're teenagers that like, oh, you know, self-madeness or like the God complex is like coming into things and you know
That irksome God complex.
yeah.
Yeah.
So two things are like the father birthing you is like one, just like a reality check, but then
Yeah.
two is like reminded me of the whole commandment of
Right.
and that the Gemara links that to God.
Yeah.
Like Kavod Hashem.
Yeah.
So like I think it might be something there.
Oh, that's interesting also. Yeah, we should ask this question, which is how, if at all, do we not reconcile? Do we relate this to kibud av v'aim? Kibud of the aim and all its philosophical like ideas. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily have something tied to per se, aside
Yeah.
from the
That's cool.
the connection to Kavod.
Yeah.
And then I think Valtova is your old mother. I don't think that necessarily means old, like biologically, like objectively old. I think it's just like, again, like speaking from experience, at least, like as a teenager, you know, we look at our mother or parents even, and we're like, oh, they're old and they're out of touch and they don't know what it's like to be a kid these days.
You sound like my old man.
yeah, and like all that kind of stuff. So I think it's just very easy to like just like brush them aside. And I think this is even preemptively like talking to that person as well.
Yeah, I think that's sorry. I think this is a good approach, which is that it is talking to someone in a specific stage of youth where these are the types of reasons that they would give for not listening to their parents. And I think it's also, just as a side note, I think it is funny that, like, I mean, you'll find this out as you get older, but like your definition of what constitutes old in your parents definitely is not the same when you're 10 as it is like when my dad's like 40 or 50, like that's old, and you realize like much later, like, oh no, that wasn't old. Yeah, right.
So I guess I have more just scattered thoughts on that though.
Yeah, so I think the question now would be, what are the parameters? Let's actually just
I could give the answer to that.
What are the parameters of this advice? Yeah.
I mean, it goes back to like isn't this obvious? But I mean, the parameters of, at least if I want to connect it to kavod and yira, is halacha, like anything within halacha, like. Yeah,
but are you really then listening to your parents, or are you listening to? I mean, that's just following halacha, right? Yeah, I have an idea also. Yeah.
Okay, I'll read. I think in some ways similar, some ways not.
Okay.
I think these are identifying two different ways that a kid would want to rebel against his parents.
Okay.
Two, at least, reasons why. I think this is like, if these are the reasons why you're rebelling, then don't. Like, this is why you should be listening.
Yeah.
So one could be that, there's a father who he didn't birth me, but whatever, he's my biological father, so I have to push back against that.
Yeah.
And in a similar way of like, oh, my parents are old, like that's not the way things are done. So I'm specifically going to like go ahead and go against that, right? Tavos, like I'm making nothing of that.
Right. In other words, tavos can only come from something beyond just this isn't relevant. Like if it's just not relevant, so then you don't despise it or scorn it. You just don't listen to it. But there's some underlying.
And so I think that then these are identifying like two big reasons why to not listen, and like, wait, if this is why you're doing it, like catch yourself, and then you should be listening.
Okay. All right. I like that approach. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I was gonna. Along the lines of like what Sean is reading, kind of want to say, like, I think it's not bad. The objective of the pasuk is to maintain the relationship in the family.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm gonna start with the second half of the pasuk because it's easier.
See that just a comment. That's an interesting approach because that would differentiate it from the other to listen to your fathers in Mishlei, which is really for you. You're like saying that the benefit is for the family.
Yeah. Because biological. That's the only reason.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah.
I think the mother, and I'm getting the idea from the mother herself, because the mother like she's married to this guy, and they both have a child.
Yeah.
Right. And her wish is so that everyone can get along because we're biological relatives. Like she has that dream of like getting along, and there are times where like the son can rebel against the father for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
And when the mother is in her youth, she can kind of like tame that, control that, she can mediate or whatever.
Yeah.
But when she's older, or when she's weaker, it's hard for her to do that.
Yeah.
Because she's weak.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that if by you degrading the father when she's old is kind of like causing more issues in the family. It could tear up the family. You degrading the father. So you're saying that it's degrading the father. Well, the second half is talking about degrading. Yeah. But the more negative. But the first half is kind of like there is a positive to listen to your father, which I'm still trying to figure out. Right. So now I'm seeing. I don't know if this was obvious to everyone else first, but this does answer. Your reading does answer the nor part, because really what it's saying is listen to your father and don't degrade your father. And then there are two reasons being given
of Zayaladecha and your mother is old and like she's going to take this in a bad way or something, you know, like it really becomes all about the father then. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, yeah, that's an interesting read. I'm sensing this is one of these pasukim where I feel like there is going to be a lot of overlap in the reasonings, and then we have to get everything out on the table, and then the question is going to be like, what's the how many in others like this? There's going to be many reasons given, but then the main idea, I feel like there's going to be several approaches that many of the reasons can fit under. Yeah, Sean.
Oh, Isaac.
Oh, Isaac. Yeah, Isaac.
Yeah. So I was just thinking about what David said.
Yeah.
And it seemed, it reminded me of like a Kabbalist thing of saying, raise a chadashu.
Yeah.
And that, there's a certain like feeling of like, oh, my parents don't understand anything because, just because, just because they're from a previous generation.
Right. Just to read the pasuk that you're quoting, Yesh davar sh'yomar re'ezeh chadashu. This is in clause 1, and it's going to be 10 and 11. There is a thing about which person will say, oh, look, this is new. Who chadashu? Kvar hayal olamim asher hayal milfanenu. It's already existed in the ages that have been before us. In zichron larishonim. There is no remembrance of the earlier generations. Gam la'achronim shehiyu lo yihiyeh lahem zichron im shehiyu la'achrona. And also to the later generations, there will not be any memory of the later ones that would be. So in other words, you forget the fact that like your parents all, like some new trend or fad, merge the two words, comes up, and like you're like, they don't understand this, but there was something similar in their time that could be that they could advise you on that could be equally relevant, but you just dismiss it because of that, and then that's the same thing that's going to happen to you. Yeah. Did you have something else, John?
Yeah, I have a completely different approach.
Okay, so hold on for a second. Yeah.
Also, like not really like a sort of approach, but like fitting it within like the theme kind of.
Yeah.
There is like the theme has talked a little bit about how there's like short-term, let's say pleasure versus long-term pleasure.
Yeah.
And like short-term pleasure being like hanging out with chataim and being
The wine and yeah, right.
right.
Yeah.
But listening to your father is going to be like a long-term benefit, because even if not every single thing he says is like the best advice, like he's giving like some like kind of framework that like he worked with and like helps him succeed. And it might not be like the best advice, but like it's still like it means the best for you. And, like, it will be like decent. Like
okay, so I also had a similar approach, and this kind of goes with all three of your approaches, and can fit into either one. Is that I think that I guess it's closest with David is that if a person just ignores his mother's advice, then that's one thing. But if he's degrading her, then that shows some sort of rebellion, or some sort of like resistance, that needs to be dealt with, something beyond just practicality. Similarly, if a person doesn't obey what his father says, that could be for many reasons, but he's not even willing to listen to what his father says, then there's a problem there. And then there's actually like a resistance there. So I think maybe the way to read this is that on the first level, this is just telling you to listen to what your father says because of the reasons that you mentioned, and like there could be value, and like in the long run it'll be good even if it's not right all the time. And then like if you make it that far, so then there are people who would just listen like as a token gesture, which is a level, but they won't bother to think deeply into it and say, no, you should go with that also, which is the understanding it, And then there are cases in which you are, which I think this does like evoke a resistance in us, but like that, okay, you might have like some way that you think is best, but like given the fact that your father has more experience, there are cases when you should just subordinate yourself to his advice and go along with it, even though every cell in your body goes against it. And I think the clear way to see this example when it doesn't evoke such strong emotions is with in mentorship positions or expert novice things. If you're learning a new craft, or if you're like taking martial arts lessons or whatever, and like the expert says, do this, and you're like, no, but that doesn't make any sense. Like you have to be a real idiot to like just go against what the expert says when you're just starting off, so like, and that's the type of thing that I'm saying, like, you should harness that feeling and realize like, oh, my father is in a similar position, to this. And look, truthfully, there's also going to be a certain knowledge he has, not just of the situation, but certain knowledge of you based on the upbringing, based on like how he was when he was younger, based on like seeing the bigger picture, the nature and nurture. So it's like, yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, you want to, right. So in other words, like that itself, yeah, on the one hand, you have a greater perspective on yourself because you're you. On the other hand, you have a lesser perspective on yourself because you're you, like, and it could be to your advantage to like subordinate yourself to that with your father. And I think, and the more I'm talking about this, the more I'm inclined to say this is talking about both ways. Like the zakna can go on the father or the mother, and then the yaledecha. I think that what you were saying, Chaim, the desire to like be your own self-made person, or like not acknowledging that you came from somewhere, or wanting to differentiate yourself, to individuate, like psychologists say, like these can all be reasons that can be fueling the rebellion. And this is telling you like a general policy to like at the very least to act against that to the point where you can listen, and then you can think and do it, and then maybe even like obey it. And it's not saying that your father is always right, And the funny thing about this also is that this could be that your father is a Russia, right? Even if he's a Russia, like there's going to be certain insight that he has into you that like, or even sometimes listening to what he advises you so that you can do the opposite. Like there are people who will not even take into account like I always used to give, there are always cases in high schools where like students are caught in classes with a teacher who they hate, and like they disagree with everything they say, and they'll just shut off. And I would usually advise those students, like, no, you can use the teacher's bad advice to learn, or the bad lesson, like, so don't just shut them off. Be sure you can formulate and defend why you do disagree with that. Like, can you actually like have a mock dialogue in your mind, understand what is, there's a lot you can gain even from like bad advice. And I don't think that's the primary thing in the pasuk. I'm just saying this could apply even to like, if Rachel and Leah listened to Laban, listened, not obeyed, but like listened, they could pick up a lot on him and also on themselves because of the fact that he raised them. There's a lot to like take into account there. Yeah.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to add on, like, maybe the message could, in addition to all of that, be to the son that like, look, eventually, because like if he has this rebellious nature, like chances are that like when he raises a family, and he's instigating this type of behavior. That's
also true.
It's gonna, transmit down to his own son. It's gonna be a very
that's another good point.
Stable family.
Right.
So he's kind of like, maybe the father's also teaching like, look, like if this is how you're treating us, and like our lineage will die down very quickly.
Right. Yeah. that's a good point. Okay, Sean, you want to say your totally different approach?
Yeah. So I wouldn't say it's totally
okay. Fine. Yeah.
But
it's gonna be hard to be totally different in this area unless you say that like Avicha is God, Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I bet Rashi's gonna say. Here's my guess. I bet he's gonna say Avicha is God and Imecha is Knesset Yisrael. Rashi loves that move. No, it's a pasuk. It's open pasuk. Suri yaladecha teshi v'tishkach kel mechol. You forgot the God who bore you and the rock who formed you. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So I wanted to tie this a little bit more heavily into Kibbud Av V'Em.
Yeah.
Right. And my approach is that what this is talking about is the psychological positions that are going to be pushing you away from Kibbud Av V'Em.
Okay.
And that the reason why it's bringing this up over here is that once you establish and recognize these two different types of rebellions that you're going to have against Kibbud Av V'Em, so then also in terms of recognizing God, that's also going to, right? Because Kibbud Av is supposed to be facilitating your recognition that you're dependent on God, and that also then sequentially fits in with where we are within this group of pasukim, which is that like this point you should be recognizing more meta realities.
Yeah.
Right? So the first one is that, right? So because you're an independent person, right? So a lot of times you forget where you came from, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a sense that we want to completely dispense with our past, right? And not recognize all the things that contributed to our being. Right? And that's one of the things that pushes us to rebel against Kibbud Av V'Em, and that would be right. Shema Levicha definitely, right?
Yeah.
So that's that first side. The other side is that when your parents get to a certain age where they're old and they're weak, and you're the one supporting on them, in a sense, it can feel like I'm like a very powerful person, right? And I have these people that I have to support that like are weak, and there's a certain arrogance and sense of independence that comes from that, of like, look at how powerful I am, that like these people who created me are now dependent on me, right? And it completely flips the relationship that you're supposed to be having, and so therefore it's focusing on that your mother, when she becomes weak, so you're going to relate to her differently, and it's going to inflate your sense of self, right? And that is a completely distorted reality. And so those two different types of things are going to interfere.
Okay, that's definitely an interesting approach that I think is forks off from David's approach. And can you just explain to me again, how were you relating this to Kavod HaMakom? Or were you just alluding to that? That's a possibility.
I think that once you recognize that there's two things that contribute to your sense of independence. One, which is that like I don't care about the past. And the other one is that like these people are reliant on me. That those two types of things are going to also be the same phenomenon that are going to make you reject your relationship with God. And your covenant to God. And that's also then going to fit in with this whole refining oneself and recognizing like proper action.
I would just tweak one little thing, which is that, and it's hard for me, even though like I'm getting into that realm where like my parents are getting old, it's hard for me to relate to the sense of superiority. I think if anything, the taboos would be a sense of resentment that you have to take care of them.
I think, honestly, that was more what I was thinking. My grandmother's getting very old. And my grandmother's children. There's a lot of resentment towards because they have to support her. Right. And so because of that resentment, that builds like I'm better than you.
I see. Right? Okay.
That's what I think is right. So there's two things that contribute to the I'm better than you. Right? Like, you might have created me, but like I'm a self-made individual now. Right. And the other one is that like, look at how weak you are now. And like all the things that you did in your life are now coming to bite you at the end of your life. And so like, this is your justice. And so then like, there's a sense of superiority and righteousness.
I was just reading this morning, I was reading an analysis of a Freud analysis of one of his own dreams. And in his analysis, he goes through this whole thing where like he associates to a true memory of him. He used to wet the bed when he was like 2, and like he had like issues with his dad about that. And then one time when he was like 7, he went into his parents' room and like used their toilet, and his father said the boy will amount to nothing. And then he associates to another thing when his dad was old, and his dad had gone blind, and he was helping his dad like use the bathroom, and he had this like rush of like, look who amounted to nothing, now, and like I'm the one helping you. You were making fun of me. There's definitely like there's in other words, I think what I'm saying, and maybe I'm just associating this because of the Freud, but like it's more than just the resentment about where you came from. There is a sort of a like the tables have turned type of phenomenon as well, and that can be damaging to like this entire system if you allow that idea to infect you, then that can completely distort your relationship with the entire system. I think that's a good approach.
Not a phone approach, but just on the topic of rebellion here. I think also if you're going to read taboos, not taboos to your mother, but just in general, just like reading yourself, I think that can have, in a way, there would be something within a person that wants to be self-destructive, just as a way of like, oh, you wanted to raise a good kid, like I'm gonna like not a good kid. Whether or not you're doing it to your parents, but you're then degrading yourself in that way. I think there could also be a similar thing of I'm not going to listen to people because you guys tried to make me listen. Listen. But definitely the reticence taboos part.
Okay, I hear that also. So let's go Ariel Chaim, and then we'll stop for today.
It's interesting because like the way he's learning the pasuk, I wonder if you can.
The way Sean or Sean? Oh, yeah.
Like I wonder if you could read the pasuk. The second half of the pasuk is like based off of your relationship with your father. And using it's your example of Freud. Like like, when you're being brought up by your dad, like you will have natural, conflict with your dad. He may be oppressive, he may be, whatever. But like maybe the degrading can come from your experiences with your father, like the consequence of that.
Right.
I just wonder.
Yeah. No, I think that definitely fits in. Yeah.
Yeah, it's along the whole lines of like when your parents get old, then there's like this flip. I feel like even from like a societal level, like that's true. Like you have like I feel like if it weren't for like certain like old Gevulim, right, Gevul alum, then like it like from a purely biological perspective, it doesn't make sense to take care of your old baby boy. Like animals, the thing gets old, then they leave it. Yeah. So like there's like I feel like there's like some sort of like instinctual nature to like do that. Yeah. Like, just be like, I have no more use of this person. Yeah, they got me to a certain point. If you recognize that, but like there's no more gain anymore. And like just like
that reminds me to clarify. I was laughing like because you said a sentence to express what this person's saying, like, yeah, you gave me existence, but it is a funny and that's a human like it's something a Lakin based way of recognizing it, not like an animalistic based way. I think that juxtaposition is important.
Well, like, even on that, it's like going back to again that flip. It's like, yeah, you gave me life, but look how ironic it is, and now I'm preserving your life.
Right.
Like, it boosts like that God complex even more.
Right.
It's like yeah, you may have created me, but now I'm even stronger.
Yeah.
Like I'm the created being. So
right.
Like that created being wanting to be stronger.
Definitely. Yeah. All right. Interesting approaches. I feel like in terms of what we emerged with, I feel like we have like 2.5 approaches. There's like the more shot-based approach that this is telling you to it's directly in line with the vein of the other things of like, these are reasons why you might not listen to your parents, and this is telling you why you should. Then we have this more psychological approach about the way you relate to your parents in their old age. And then we have, I think there's a lot of potential in several of the things you've said about, it's talking about like the family unit in some way. And that's worth considering also. Okay, we'll come back to it tomorrow. Yep, thanks.